Fairy tales are like tofu. They will take on whatever flavor you want them to. This is one of the things I love most about them, even though it also means that deplorable people can use them to perpetuate their own messages as well. I'm Liz, and this is Into the Hoods, a series where I've been deep diving into the history of the Little Red Riding Hood folktale. Today, we'll talk about how Little Red came to represent each side of the movements for and against fascism in Europe between the two world wars. My primary source for this series, as always, is The Trials and Tribulations of Little Red Riding Hood by Jack Zipes, the second edition. After World War I, writers began playing with the plot of Little Red to express social and political ideas, often satirical, and largely for an adult audience. Germany, reeling from the Great War and headed into the second one not long from now, was a hotbed of politically leaning fairy tale adaptations, as the country was reacting to the various ideologies trying to gain dominance over its citizens. I apologize in advance for my name pronunciation in this episode. Joachim Ringelnatz wrote a satire of Little Redcap that was a direct knock at the German nationalism that both the Grimms and the current government, for him, were pushing. In his version, it is the grandmother who eats up everything in sight, including Little Red. Another writer, Ulrich Link, used the tale to showcase the problems of the increasingly popular Nazi Party, but interestingly, he doesn't change much in the tale. Rather, he peppers in phrases associated with the Nazi Party, casting Little Red as a member of Hitler Youth, describing the grandmother as Aryan, and the wolf, of course, is the alien outsider. On the flip side, Werner von Bührer analyzed Little Redcap as the perfect metaphor for Germany's far right politics, particularly the stab in the back theory, which is the theory that Germany wouldn't have lost World War I if it weren't for the commies, socialists, and the Jewish who supposedly betrayed them. In von Bührer's mind, the wolf tricks Little Redcap, who is the embodiment of Germany, into its belly, but the huntsman, embodying law and order and justice, will save Germany, much like the Führer would. Little Redcap, more like Little Red Armband. Yikes! So that's what's happening with Little Red in Germany, but what about the rest of the world? After all, we were juggling world wars. While in Great Britain and America, Little Red was largely still pushing the idea that law and order would save the day. The wolf symbolized problematic governments like Germany, our enemy at the time, but insisted that we couldn't let our reservations over that totalitarian government affect our attitudes towards our own justice system. Yes, we just had our First World War. Yes, a depression is sinking the global economy. Yes, Germany pulled its playbook from the American eugenics movement, but don't lose faith in the system, folks. There's just a couple of big bad wolves in there. A couple of American writers did go against this trend. In 1939, James Thurber wrote the short and sassy The Little Girl and the Wolf, a version I have parodied here in the style of a film noir. Little Red saves her own butt by whipping out a handgun before the wolf can eat her. Thurber was reflecting the increasingly independent attitudes of 20th century women. And H.I. Phillips took an anti capitalist approach with his version of Little Red, in which Little Red embodies the smiling face of capitalism as it ravages society, leading to an endless cycle of violence as the put upon wolves of the world bite back. Speaking of anti capitalist views, in Russia, playwright Evgeny Schwartz wrote a pro Marxist version of Little Red, where the girl teaches the animals of the forest about collective action and community organizing. She rallies them to resist the tyrannical rule of the wolf. You can really see how everyone gets their paws on fairy tales and the messages they offer, regardless of their point of view. And we see this today with the culture wars over Snow White, for example, leading to dueling versions of the fairy tale coming out in 2025. The supposedly woke Disney version, which will most certainly not be very woke at all, and the traditional version coming from the Daily Wire, because apparently they think we've all forgotten about the 1937 animated version that exists. It exists, and it's still quite popular, guys. Seeing how we put Little Red Riding Hood through the same sort of tug of war 100 years ago, I started to wonder, are we progressing as a society? Are we? Are we? Next time on Into the Hoods, we'll take a look at how Little Red Riding Hood has surfed the waves of the feminist movement. I'll see you then.